Yes, hello. I was wondering if you could play that song again.
Which one, man?
The one that goes... Bee boo boo bop boo boo beep.
No, man, you're thinking of beep, boo, boo, bop, boo, boo, bop.
CJAM 99.1 FM, deciphering your requests from Windsor and Detroit's underground since 1983. The following program may contain difficult or triggering subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Navigating Life and Everything in Between. I'm Alan, a fellow college student just like many of you, and I'm thrilled to start this journey of exploration. You see, the idea for this podcast was from a simple realization. Life in college is a roller coaster, and it often feels like we're navigating through a maze of questions. From making big life decisions to tackling the daily challenges that come our way, I find myself pondering over countless topics, wondering if others my age are going through the same thing. So here we are. This podcast is my attempt to bring those questions into the open and to create a space where we can collectively unravel the mysteries of life, share insights, and perhaps find a few answers together. With that being said, I am beyond excited to introduce our guest today, Dr. Ted Vokes, a seasoned expert with over 30 years of experience as a consultant, trainer, and facilitator in a diverse range of sectors, from aviation and healthcare to education and more. Ted has specialized honors bachelor in psychology from York University and his master's and Ph.D. in industrial organizational psychology from the University of Windsor. He specializes in leadership development, dispute resolution, and transforming workplace culture. He was a former Air Force captain and currently teaching Introduction to Psychology and in the Masters of Management program at the Odette School of Business at the University of Windsor. I know you've probably had your fair share of people praising what you've done, but I want to take a moment to express my admiration for the legacy that you've created. And thank you so much for coming.
Alan, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here with you today.
Of course. So Ted, your journey to where you are today is undoubtedly inspiring for many young individuals who aspire to follow a similar path. We often hear about the challenges and difficult times people face on their way to success. It reminds us that even those we admire have had their share of tough moments. With that in mind, I'm curious if you could share a personal experience from your past when you encountered a particularly challenging period and your mental state was put to the test.
Yeah, there's more than a couple, I have to say. And there's a song lyric out there. Everybody's got a story that could break your heart. I'm not going to talk about a heartbreak story, but everybody I get to talk to has their own challenges that they've come through. I think one of the ones that might relate most to what our listeners today could relate to would be some of the challenges of getting through a program with some setbacks. I was rear-ended by a city bus when I was trying to complete my Ph.D. research, and it set me back by a full 3 years in recovery. I was able to work small amounts during that time, but nothing like this pace that would be expected to complete the Ph.D. in the time frame you're supposed to complete it. So there's this press, right, to finish in a given amount of time, and I understand where that comes from, but it doesn't allow for somebody to get hit by a bus. From that experience, I had to become very, very patient with the recovery time. There was no way to speed it up. It was going to take what it was going to take. So endurance was tough, a lot of pain, but we can endure a lot. Patience was the thing that I think I took from that experience more than anything, or had to develop to get through that, and ultimately complete my doctoral work.
Amazing. You talked a lot about patience in your answer, and I just want to know how significant were relationships that you had during those times in building that patience and just getting through that really hard time?
That's a great question. I can go on so many tangents. Harvard has a long-standing, it's the longest study in the history of psychology that continues to run on human development, and it's been running since the 1920s, I believe. All of the findings from that underscore what you just said, that relationships are the key to a satisfying, engaged life, even for we introverts. And I'm deeply introverted, but you're spot on. The relationships that I had at the time and continue to have were the things that got me through that. People saying that, we'll get through this. People there when I had a blinding headache from the injuries that I suffered from the accident. So it's all about brains in relation to brains. I'm an applied social psychology practitioner, and those brains influencing my brains were the things that led me to the point of appreciating that this is going to take what it's going to take. There's no way to speed this up. And then I had to work with a lot of other amazing professors that I had who supported me in getting extensions throughout that time, because the university bureaucracy has a time frame and all. And so, then Dr. Sheila Towson and Dr. Henry Mitten went to bat for me and made a difference in my ability to complete my research. So I'm grateful for those relationships, and my family. Family really was there throughout that whole time. So Harvard confirms it. The thing that makes for the greatest life satisfaction are the quality of the relationships that you can develop, foster, and maintain. Nobody on their deathbed actually does say, I wish I spent more time in the office. But they sure do say, I wish I spent more time with my kids, or I wish I'd showed up for my best friend at that time. And those who are satisfied at the end of life say it was being with the people that mattered. And this is coming from a deeply introverted individual saying this. So even we introverts need our relationships profoundly. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I can tell, even in my life, how important just the relationships you build and how it just has an effect on your mood. And I really liked at the end that you mentioned on someone's deathbed, they would say that they wish they never spent more time at the office and more time with their family. But how, as someone who's going through life and trying to achieve goals, how do you prioritize and balance your life to where you can do both of them at the same time? How do you know when you've done enough work and ready to go with your family?
Sure. Yeah. $1 million question. And in my field, in industrial organizational psych, this whole thing about work-life balance has been something that has been around for 40 or 50 years as a construct, and we have not come up with a real answer to that. That I think could apply ubiquitously. It's a task I think we all have to struggle to find our way through. I think with maturation we can start to develop the greater self-awareness, the emotional intelligence that will help us to understand the state that we're in now. We call them organizations of self, and whether that's sustainable, right? Am I studying organization of self? We're recording this at the time of exams. I know lots of folks will be out there, studying, and at what point should I take a break? What point should I go out with friends? How long should I stay out with friends? That's a constant balancing act. And the brain is pulling us. It's full of tensions. It's pulling us in different directions. I don't want to study anymore. But then I'm afraid of what will happen if I don't study more. And my significant other, they're upset with me because I'm not spending time with them. And so we're constantly balancing all of these pulls and presses. So this idea of balance, I wish I had a simple answer for that. I will say that anybody who doesn't develop their emotional intelligence, their ability to read their own emotions and understand what's driving them at a particular time, is going to struggle more with that. They're going to be less aware of what they need when they need it. One of the questions I put to my students around when we do stuff on self-care is the idea of who do I need to be? What version of me do I need to be right now so that I can be that other version of me, that studying version of me, an hour from now when I really have to get back to the books. So knowing what can bolster your ability to be that studying organization of self is critical, and it's going to be different for each one of us. So the more self-insight you can develop, the better quality life you're going to have, the better relationships you're going to have. That spills over into social intelligence, being able to read the emotions of other people, be aware of them, and respond to them appropriately. So emotional and social intelligence, you cannot lose by developing them. I think that's your avenue to ultimately figuring out how you balance your life best, right? What you need. There isn't one-size-fits-all solutions out there, but there's some good psychology to help you.
Thank you. That was a great answer. You touched a lot of things that I'm sure most of our listeners would be struggling with or are thinking about. And I've heard you mention 7 life hacks before. And I want to know how that plays into, I know that you said that there's never a one size fits all, but are there some things that you can do generally for most people, especially for the people listening, that can take on some of those outlets?
Absolutely, there are, and there's 7 and a growing list. And I do this in training leaders and in my first lecture in intro psych. Because let's face it, everybody's been through a whole lot in the last few years, and then entering university for the first time is a huge adjustment too. So I focus a lot on self-care. I want to start though by saying what not to do. And there's 2 critical ones that I consider absolutely vital to really attend to. And the first one is doom scrolling. I don't want to be one of those old guys who bemoans social media, because I'm on it and I know how it works, and I'm a social scientist. I need to understand this stuff. But the TikTok and Reels, flicking, gives us micro dopamine hits. Now, dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters that is involved in anticipation and pleasure and that sort of thing. And so it can feel good while we're scrolling, and we get those little micro dopamine hits, or we see how many likes we've got, and that sort of thing. The problem with micro dopamine hits is I guess it's micro dosing with dopamine, is that it's counterproductive, because we feel worse after. We feel good during and feel worse after. And what we need is a dopamine wash, and that spills into some of the 7 life psych hacks, we like to call them, that you can engage in to get yourself through difficult times, which is all of time right now. We're all living through some pretty challenging times. The other one is toxic positivity. So there's a whole bunch of stuff out there, and I don't like the term pop psychology, because it incorporates psychology in there, and you think, well, it's psychology light. No, it's not psychology. But there's lots of, think positive, and turn that smile upside down, and you lost your job. Well, at least you don't have cancer like my uncle does. These are all phrases that might be well intentioned by people, or the phrases that we can work on ourselves. Well, I shouldn't feel bad about this because people have it worse than I do. It's not a competition. You're allowed to feel what you're allowed to feel. And this idea of don't feel these things because you don't have a right to, or you shouldn't, or they're bad for you, is actually really bad psychology. It's well intentioned, but it works against us. If you're feeling crappy right now, then you're feeling crappy, and you don't have to identify with that emotion right now. I am feeling this way, but it's not who I am. And so allowing yourself to feel. I had a student during the pandemic who lost a family member to COVID, and how can I move through grief faster? And I said, you can't. You have to feel the grief. If you're going to move forward in life, incorporating this loss into you, you have to grieve. There's no, hack for that. It's and there aren't, by the way, phases of grief. We know that. However you're grieving is, and whatever you're feeling as you grieve, is what is the right thing to be feeling. So toxic positivity is don't feel the way you're feeling, and your brain is going to feel what it's going to feel. So and the other big thing is if you try and dampen down that or obliterate that with substances that can alter your mood and things like that, it comes back and hits you harder. If you were successful at dampening down one emotion, it's a package deal. They all go. So if you dampen down the ability to, or your feelings of grief, you are also dampening down your ability to feel joy. So there is no psych hack for that. Those two things, avoid those, very consciously. On the psych hack side of things, we talk about things that'll give you the dopamine wash, that'll give you that thorough experience of that dopamine satisfaction. And so things like doing something that is a little bit creative. And it doesn't have to be, painting the Mona Lisa or writing a symphony or the next great, popular song or something like that. It can be, building a birdhouse. It could be, baking muffins. It could be, doodling. It could be doing a puzzle. Anything that involves a beginning, a middle, and an end, because you get that dopamine wash at the end with that complete. It doesn't have to be completed in that moment, right? I don't know anything about making bread, but maybe you have to, let it rise for half an hour and then come back to it. Fair enough. But it's something that involves your body and your mind and your planning can get you out of some of those deep, troubling, ruminating cycles. Oh my gosh, my exams are coming and I don't feel ready, and all the rest of that stuff going on. So that's one of the 7 we talk about, is doing something that involves a little bit of creativity. Nothing too daunting, but something that is pleasurable for you and isn't giving you those immediate little micro hits of dopamine. So that's one of the 7. Sometimes it's just doing something familiar. After my father passed away and I thought I could never be happy again, the first time I was shaving after days of not shaving, there was one thing familiar in my world, and not everything in my world had changed. I still shaved the same way I did before. So it didn't make it all go away. But that's one of the other psych hacks, is just doing something familiar. So there's others. Sign up for InterPsych and I'll give you them all, or give me a longer podcast.
I took the class. It was a good class. You should definitely take it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the endorsement. It's kind of, yeah.
You're welcome. So I really liked how you talk about doing something creative, and it kind of makes me feel like these are like little wins that
well
essentially
put.
Bring you back to where you were, or a better state of mind. And I kind of wanted to shift the conversation to confidence and how those little wins can bring you that type of confidence. Nowadays, I think confidence is the fuel that helps us take risks, embrace challenges, and pursue our aspirations. And as a college student like myself, I've noticed how important it is. And so I just want to ask you, for people that struggle with low confidence, what steps can they take to help build their confidence?
It's a great question, and there's a lot of deep psychology in answering that. So confidence is kind of can be framed as a byproduct of success, except it doesn't always work that way. So we think that, well, the more I do it, the more success I have, the more confident I'll be, and sometimes that is indeed the case. But we have something out there that is taking our world of social psychology by storm. A lot of people have heard about the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people who are highly competent may not be as confident. and those who are highly incompetent may be very confident that that's the here, hold my beer, how hard could it be kind of moment, right? And then disaster unfolds. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is about people who are not competent overestimating their capabilities, and people who are highly competent underestimating their abilities, partly because they know how much they don't know. And so I've taught, I don't know, over 150 university courses, and that's not my full-time work, right? My full-time work is private practice.
Right.
But every time I go into a new lecture, I am not 100% confident I'm going to pull it off. I got to earn that. I got to earn that space with my class. I got to earn their willingness to listen to what I have to say and to feel confident to ask questions and things like that. So I never want to become super confident. Now, on another avenue, let's say you've never done something before, you won't become confident unless you put yourself out there and do some things, take some risks, right? Courage isn't about not having fear. Courage is about being frightened and doing it anyway. I've jumped out of airplanes. I was scared in my first jump, more scared in my second jump, because you tend to know what's going to happen in your second jump, so you're actually more frightened on that one, at least for some of us. And on the last jump I made, I was not sure everything was going to go good, despite all that great training. What did allow me to jump out of those airplanes was the training. Training. So, simulations up to the point at which you're actually, leaving a perfectly serviceable aircraft and relying on a piece of fabric to keep you from, plummeting into the ground. So the confidence can come from, practice, absolutely. From who you're working with. I get a lot of confidence in what we take on in the work world from an incredible team I'm surrounded with. We have the most amazing practitioners in our practice who give me so much confidence that if I'm missing something, someone else is going to pick it up. If I don't say what needs to be said in a moment, one of them will. So we do a lot of teamwork in the training we do and the facilitation we do. So I get a lot of confidence from the people I'm working with, right? And so the confidence, it's this very amorphous thing. It's not necessarily just one thing. It looks too like some people are born with a higher level of confidence, in a sense, or a capacity for that, and sometimes very much to the detriment. Narcissists can be profoundly confident and in their own capabilities when there's nothing to base that on. And one of the traps for us in the world that we've always been in, but that we're aware of today, is that a lot of confident people are out there espousing this is the way forward. And people kind of go, well, if you're confident, you must be competent. And there isn't a correlation between the two. So you can be very confident. When I was in the military, we had an officer who was a superior officer to us, and we came to phrase about him because he was incompetent, often wrong, but never in doubt. He was always absolutely confident in the course of action he was telling us to take, and we always knew it was going to be a bad outcome. So competence and confidence are assumed to go together, but they don't necessarily. And some of the most competent people aren't necessarily the most confident. Wow. Complicated, right? Sorry about that, but it's a great area to explore.
Wow, yeah. Honestly, that completely shifted my output or view on confidence completely. And it honestly makes so much sense. I've even heard there's professional fighters and all the greats. They always say some of these guys go into fights dead scared. They're terrified of losing, but some of them are the greatest fighters in the world. And having that fear and still going through it anyway, like you mentioned, courage is really what's going to propel you. Yeah. And so I liked a lot of the qualities you also spoke about, and I want to see how much of those link into being a leader, because I know you do a lot of work with management, and so Could you speak on that further?
Yeah, you just brought it right home for me. So here's the thing. Leadership is one of the hardest things the brain can actually take on. The task of leading pulls you in so many directions simultaneously, and the brain is a cognitive miser. It's not lazy. It's trying to preserve its internal resources that fuel it. And the brain, by the way, 2% of our body mass, and consumes 20% of our caloric intake in a day. So there's no organ in the brain that is demanding more glucose than the brain is. Yep. So leadership is pulling us in many directions. It's making the brain work really hard, harder than maybe the brain wants to, because again, it wants to conserve resources, doesn't know what else is going to come in the day. And so it doesn't want to expend too much at any given time, right? And leadership kicks in when culture fails. So if it's a normal day here at CJAM and you guys come in and you go through your routines and everything is working just fine, you're operating on the basis of the culture of the organization, right? And that's all good. Then suddenly, a system goes down. And it's like, okay, we got to call somebody, or, we got to get somebody who knows more about this, right? And so there's the leadership process kicking in, and it's answering 3 core questions. What's happening? What's it mean to us? And what we can do about it? Those are the core leadership questions that our leaders, are contending with all the time. Because when everything else is going fine, everything's going, you don't need me, right? So the brain gets engaged by helping to answer those questions, by drawing information out of the team, for instance. What the team needs in those times of uncertainty is somebody who's going to show up, especially if it's it's not a routine kind of thing. Oh, our internet went down, we just have to reset the router, yeah. Something like that. Not the tech genius of the world. And then we move on. But if it's something really profound, it's really jarring to the team. What the team needs at that time is the leader to show up with, and here's where we circle back, the 3 C's. And the 3 C's that help calm other brains down is when, if I'm the leader, I can show up as calm, confident, and compassionate. Now, we get into the details of how that organization of self, that version of me that I bring forward, calm, confident, and compassionate, influences the brains of other people around them. Now, we say that that's the 3 C's that you want to show up with, and there's that confidence that we're talking about, right? Yeah. But you don't have to actually be them when the time is upon you, and but I have to show up that way. So sometimes it's not fake it till you make it, it's fake it till you become it. And so I'm calm even though I'm not feeling that way. I walk into a new lecture, a new course with a group of students, and I'm not totally calm like you're saying, right? I don't want to be, I have to earn my place there, but I have to appear that way. I say, I'm running this class. This is my class.
I love that, yeah. So
calm, confident, I've done this before, right? Problems are solvable. We'll deal with them. We'll get through them, that kind of thing. And compassionate. Compassionate's also there. We're on the same team. I'm not going, oh, gee, sucks to be you. Bad situation for you. Hope it works out. That compassionate thing is in groupness. We're together, and we're on this challenge that we're taking on together. So even if I'm not feeling those things, if I show up that way, with that, there's that confidence piece there that you were so insightfully brought in. But with the other 2, right, the calm and the compassionate, that calms other people's brains down, brings them into a place where they can think better. Okay, it brings us from a limbic, emotion-centered, alarm center to a prefrontal area where we're most capable of using our intellectual capacities to solve the problem. But me seeing my team do that also brings me into more of a genuine, calm, confident compassion. Look, they're engaged. They're oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Hey, Alan, thank you. That's a brilliant idea. Let's try that, right? And we kick in together, and all of our brains go into that calm, confident, compassionate place. We're in this together. We can solve it. Problems are solvable. We collaborate, and so there's where confidence and leadership tend to come into play. I ask people, have you ever seen a leader panic? And many have. And then they'll say, how did you feel about them afterwards? And sometimes they're forgiving, but sometimes it's like I never see them the same way again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for everything. And that wraps up our insightful episode of Navigating Life and Everything in Between. A huge thank you to our guest, Dr. Ted Vokes, for sharing his wealth of knowledge on leadership, competence, coping with life's uncertainties, and many more. Your insights have truly been amazing. And to our listeners, thank you. Your support means a lot.